second. So within Shopify, there's a couple ways we can typically add analytics. Shopify's got its own like internal analytics system that will already track traffic. But if we want to track it in Google Analytics, it's usually a good idea to add their code as well. So most Shopify stuff, depending on what it is, we want to come into themes, actions, and edit code. This is one that you just kind of eventually know once you've done enough Shopify stuff, but we're going to go to theme.liquid, sorry, not 404.liquid. And we're going to go right above the closing head tag right here, and we'll just add the analytics code. So on the analytics side, once we log in, we'll kind of come to this home screen. If we needed to set up a new property, typically we'll come down to admin and then either create account, or since obviously they've already got an account or we have already got an account, you can also create just a new property in the account. If it's your account, since this is their account, we can see that we can't create new stuff. But if we switched into one that we actually own, which I don't know which ones of these we might own. Okay, now you can see we could create all of the different options. When you create it, basically just asks like what time zone do you want to put it in and what is the website that you want to track. Once you finish inputting all that information, it takes you to this screen. So two things you can do. You can get your tracking ID, which we'll put into several different softwares, or certain websites will just ask for the tracking ID and then they'll generate the code. Or we can just grab the code. So in this case, we're just going to grab it and we'll paste it right there. Basically, we're just putting it as the last script in the header. So before it finishes the head portion of the website and starts like loading the body, it will have run the Google Analytics script and basically just start tracking people. So we can go ahead and save there. We want to make sure that it's actually working. So we'll send test traffic. I'm just going to move that window to the other screen. And then to test and see if it's working, we want to come to real time and overview. And now we can see one of us is on the website. It's probably my little test one that I opened. This is good evidence, though, of our thing about radiuses. It thinks that we're in Draper, which is actually a fair distance away given where we are. So now that we know that's going to have data, we can basically just say, hey, your analytics wasn't connected before. It'll start gathering data, and probably by the time they get their first real report, they'll be able to see it. We can come back to our dashboard again, and search engine interaction should be our next one. Let me make sure that he gave us access to that as well. So for that, it's just going to be search.google.com. Used to be webmasters.google.com. I think that's still forwards over. And I'm just going to sign in as Jamie again. And we just want to see if we can find the paper store and more. Okay, so we know we've got it. Now we'll just make sure we've got it connected as well. I wasn't sure if we needed to like accept it or something there. And if we had needed to, it would have been hard to find. Looks like Amy's probably already connected. And there it is, Paper Store and More. Just for good measure, since we just got the account, when we do first get or set up webmaster tools for someone, we typically want to go in and just make sure that we've got some things set up like their sitemap. So for the Paper Store and More, it should be, I believe, just /sitemap.xml. But we'll just quickly verify that. Okay, does look like that's the correct URL for our sitemap. And so we'll just submit that to Google so that they start crawling over the sitemap to use for reviews. If we see any issues, this is also where we can come and look at things like robots.txt and like if there were any security or manual actions where they were being penalized specifically for something like their site being hacked or pornographic stuff being injected, whatever it might be. If Google is like completely delisted them, we'll be able to find out why in here. But other than that, we just want to get it connected for the time being. Since again, it didn't have data in there and it'll take a little time for that data to build, we'll see this once the data is built. He said he also gave us Google My Business, so we're going to see if we can get that connected. Okay, I don't see it yet, so again, we'll just see if we need to approve or find anything. So all of your stuff for Google Business is just going to be business.google.com. I am not necessarily seeing the Paper Store and More, though. No. Okay, so I'll follow up with him and see if we can figure out that one, because usually we either get like an email or a notification somewhere that we need to come in and approve it if we need to. And since I don't see anything in here, maybe he hasn't sent that one over quite yet. So last one that we haven't set up yet, I think I mentioned before that the website health and Majestic ones that do the backlinks are just basically click and run. There's not really much that we need to connect. And so for leads, we'll just need to make sure that we've set up an account for them for their form tracking and whatnot. This is one of the only ones that we've got multiple accounts for. So I4 clients or non-Amplify people will generally go in the I4 one. We just don't give them logins to view their stuff if they're not an I4 person. But everyone else that's Amplify, they've got their own lead portal. It's exactly the same, just differences. Instead of logging in at leads.i4solutions.com or i4.net, you log into leads.amplifyonline.com. I don't know if we've gotten you guys logins for this, but again, something that we can get you relatively quick and easy. Okay, since we don't have an account for them, we're going to set it up entirely. So either one, doesn't matter which one you're in, we'll just come in and we'll go to the top, accounts, add account. Name it. Since they're not doing call tracking, we're just going to skip the part about call setting up a call tracking number. And I'm trying to see if they even have forms. Might just be this join our mailing list form. Okay, I guess so. So we'll just import that form in here. Okay. So exactly like it says, if for whatever reason it can't find the form, there's a few different things that we can do. We can sometimes try the advanced integration, which is just going into the code and finding different elements. But a lot of the time, we need to just contact their support, and they can kind of give us maybe like a code or something we need to add to the page to make the form detectable. For right now, we're just going to skip the step and we'll get back to it. What we do need to make sure we do is get this code, and we're just going to put it in the exact same spot that we put the code for analytics. So I guess we'll just log in again. I thought this was the tab I'd gone to it in, but oh, it was because it was in the incognito window maybe. And again, to add any tracking codes or pixels. Let me go online store, actions, edit code. Theme.liquid on the left, and we'll just paste that same script right below our one for analytics. And I'm pasting the password. And we'll fix it again. Typically, once we've done this, I would go and I would test the form to make sure that when we do submit a form that we then see the lead data come up in here. Since they didn't have a form that we set up, I'm going to skip that step for now. We'll probably go back to it towards the end. We do want to set just a couple things up for tracking though. Particularly, we want to integrate Google Analytics. And this is where we'll just take that ID that we got from Google Analytics. And plug it in right there. We can go ahead and just leave these all tracked. This just means it will send those events to Google Analytics. We don't generally connect Google Ads just because we use the Google Analytics connection to connect to ads. They don't have Google Ads, so it doesn't matter, but just by way of reference. So now that those are connected, we would normally be able to connect leads. Leads works on an API level rather than like a sign into the account level. And so typically the data is not 100% live. Oh, looks like we are able to import them, so it must have happened already. Sometimes this one takes like 5 to 10 minutes to update just because it's not live data. And then on the keywords one, this is typically where we're going to take like the keyword research or the keywords that we kind of went over with the client during our initial part, and we're basically just going to add them all in here. Just so you can kind of see what it looks like. Basically, we would just paste our keyword list here, generally using something like merge words, or we've already got that keyword list from our reports and whatnot. Going to remove this one towards the end just because we don't actually need it. We'll typically track either on the city that they're in level, the state level, or the US level. I think I may have mentioned that before. I find the US level generally kind of gives us the most accurate stuff, just then we're not affected by proximity really. Some people would prefer to have their keywords done in Orem if they're in Orem, because that's where they say their customers are searching. It's a little bit of personal preference, but if they don't give us direction, I suggest doing either United States or Utah as a whole, just so that the location doesn't really mess with your results as much. The default language should be English, so we can always choose that. We don't really use the tags for keywords too much right now. This is just if we wanted to be like able to quickly separate keywords within a campaign. So the focus keywords versus like maybe the fluff keywords, things like that. Since we're not adding any tags, we'll just add that one fake keyword. You also need to make sure that you kind of set up the keywords to check the right things. So by default, it will just check Google and Bing, and the 4 default things that it'll show are the Google change, Bing change, and the ranking. Obviously, you don't ever want people to see something that looks like it got worse, so we usually just turn those changes off and just give them the local and the mobile rankings instead in Google. We do need to make sure that we've set it up for them to get found in the map section. So if you turn on Google Local, you also want to make sure that you just come into the settings, either down here at the gear in advanced, or I think you can also do it in rankings, maybe it's the dashboard. Never remember. Might be in rankings actually. I don't see the little gear thing. Oh no, they moved it. Okay, so I guess you have to go to advanced settings now. It used to be that you could just add it. Same thing there. But it's fairly simple. If you don't have it added, you just search for the client, find the correct location, and add it. If you've got multiple locations, obviously you can add several. If once we've kind of gotten the rankings in there, they haven't shown up for like certain things, sometimes like the mobile or the local ones won't. Occasionally we just need to get in and maybe like add one keyword, and then suddenly it will go through and find stuff for all of them now. For some reason we're not finding rankings for us in our dashboard. So I'm just going to quickly see if we can troubleshoot that. If there's something that we want to remove from the dashboard, of course, you can edit and take things out. One of the things that we've kind of talked about editing and taking out are these news and updates and focus sections, just so that people aren't expecting us to update them. Oh, and I forgot that while we were in there, we wanted to come down and see what's going on here. So it should be showing us Google rankings, all keywords. That might be what we needed to do. There we go. Okay, so assuming we've now got everything connected and all we have left is to create the reports. Oh, we didn't connect Google Business. We'll get that done, but we'll still create the report real quick right now. So that last screen just shows every time we've ever downloaded a report or downloaded a dashboard. To create our monthly ones, though, we just want to start from a template. And since they've just got SEO and leads, or lead tracking, we'll do the SEO and leads report. Again, since this will be the monthly one, we just want to call it Paper Store and More monthly reports. And we'll switch to live data. Coming through it real quick. Actually, no, we'll do that at the end. At the end, I'll show you how we change it so it shows the paper store and more rather than my visual project as the logo. So we'll come in, website leads. Obviously, we're going to have that filled in with more data later, but we do want to make sure that we've got like the correct types of leads. So since the paper store and more doesn't have certain tracking things set up that we would have, we can get rid of things like events. We can probably also get rid of unique and repeated because that's not going to be a huge thing for them. But they do have purchases, so we want to add transactions. Since it's only got their profile, we don't need to necessarily set that there. And then it'll auto adjust it so it makes it 3 lengths wide rather than the 4. Similarly though, down in our other tables or things, if we've got them, we would want to switch to transactions. I think this one is a call tracking table. Since we didn't set up a phone number, we're just going to delete that. Delete that one as well, and maybe just extend these out since we won't have the call tracking data. I guess technically we can get rid of phone calls in here as well. Moving down to our next section, again, we just want to make sure stuff's actually populated. Looks like this time our graph did populate. Our Google local stuff's populating, all of our keyword rankings are populating, so we're probably good there. So website traffic, it's already pulling in some of the data just since we've connected it in the past few minutes. Everything looks kind of the way it should there. We didn't set up any goals for them yet, so I'm going to remove goal completions just for now. Generally speaking, if we had goal completions or goals set up for them, we would leave that in. We probably will want to add it in at a later point, but we'll make sure we get goal completions set up for them before we do that. And pretty much the next few sections, we're just going to be going over the analytics stuff. As long as we don't see any blank data, though, we can kind of skip through, looking at which devices. Okay, again, we don't have goal completions right now, so we're just going to get rid of the whole goal completion section here on the left. We will eventually have the Google My Business section, so for now we'll leave it there and just unconnected. Our backlink section, this is actually one that looks pretty good. They have a lot of backlinks. It looks like that have recently been lost. But this is kind of what it would look like in a more typical one where stuff is actually happening. Because I know the one we reviewed before was pretty empty. And then since we don't have data quite yet from Search Console Webmaster Tools, this one will be blank for now. Let's go ahead, save and exit, and then we'll schedule it. But since it doesn't run for a little bit, we can go and maybe set up some of those extra things like the goal completions and try and get to the point that we can add that. If we do ever need to change the design on that, we would just come over and hit edit design here. So in a minute when we add back goal completions and whatnot, that will probably be what we do. But we'll just really quickly create our schedule, send them at 9 a.m. We'll put require approval on, and we'll send them on the first day. Sorry, we want to send them the 5th day, not the first day. And then we'll just dump Ben's email in. And that sends to drop mail.
Right.
And then I'm just going to grab the part for the message area. Oh, someone that got that on for Amplify. Well, should have it. No, Frickle does not have it. There we go. One. Oh, get that added in, and we'll just change that out for Ben. Do you guys want to take a break at all before we go into like goal completion setup and a couple of other things, or are you good to keep rolling?
How long would it take if we did the goal completions and stuff?
Maybe like 20-ish more minutes.
Okay, yeah, I just have like I just have to meet somebody outside at 1:30, so it's no big deal.
Okay, yeah. We'll be relatively quick then.
Cool.
Okay, just again launching an incognito window, and we'll go back to Google Analytics. And we'll sign in as Jamie and navigate back to the paper store and again sign in as the wrong one. So we're going to set up the two events that I think will probably be most likely for them, as well as we're going to see if we can get their purchases to start tracking as well in analytics. So the first thing we'll do real quick is see if we've got e-commerce turned on. Okay, we don't. We'll just enable it. Fairly simple and straightforward there. Then we're just going to quickly come over to our audience column and go into our demographic overview. And I'm guessing this won't be turned on again. We're just going to turn it on. And then last thing, we'll come in and we'll go goals. Oh, okay. So it looks like someone may have already set up the events for goals here. So essentially, oh, because we're looking at out to view. I should probably change this and turn the stuff on that we just turned on for the correct account. Having e-commerce on for them won't probably cause an issue. Oh, looks like he did not give me enough permission. And we can't even set up goals. Okay, maybe we can't do this because I don't have high enough permissions to set up goals. We'll just quickly go through and show you how we would have done it then. I'll go back to out to view. Okay, so typically the two goals that we're tracking besides the e-commerce ones, and we should only just have to turn that on for the e-commerce ones, and then Shopify is already set up so that it sends the data over as long as it's sending data. So it should automatically start sending transaction data and basically filling in that with any transaction data that happens. For our phone call and form submission, though, if we need to set them up, this only will work though if they're also set up in leads.i4.net or leads.amplifyonline.com, because it's specifically looking for the data that's being sent from there. So for both of these, it's pretty simple. We're always just going to do custom. Can name it whatever you want. Typically, we'll just call it like form fill or phone call, and it's going to be an event type. And then how this basically works is an event has a category, an action, a label, and a value, which is optional. So whenever someone calls one of our phone numbers, the category is phone, the action is call, and the label is usually like what phone number they called. So we can just come in and change this to category begins with phone, since it's not usually very often that people have other events for phone call or phone number. Since we haven't had a phone call already set up, we won't have anything on the paper store and more, but we can see from theirs that it looks like in the past 7 days, they've triggered 4 phone calls from the website. Similarly, for a form submission, same exact thing. The category just changes to form instead of phone. Once those are all set up, and if we've added the link to analytics in leads.i4.net or leads.amplifyonline.com, then every time they get a call or a form fill, it should tick it here, and then we can kind of see it in all of the rest of our data in places as well. So we'll be able to see like a section down here that says goals or goals completed, or if we went into one of the ones that kind of shows us traffic by the channel, we'd be able to see what goals were specifically completed and where they came from. So for this one, they had 3 calls from direct traffic and 1 call from paid search, just by way of example. Any questions on that?
So when they get their conversions, is it just those 2 goals you set up? Like they're not going to see any other conversions from their website? Or is that a totally separate thing?
Unless they ask us to set up other conversions, we can set up just about anything they want. But those are the 2 that we set up by default for everyone, and really the one that we set up by default unless they're paying for call tracking.
Okay.
Basically from there, we just would have either left in the goal completion sections in analytics on the report for them. In this case, I'm not going to add them back quite yet. I was going to say we can go and add them back, but since we didn't actually get it set up, and I'm going to need to talk to Ben to probably have him increase our permissions a little bit, we can probably call it good there and stop for now. Were there any kind of questions just as far as the process for setting up a dashboard, setting up integrations, or then setting up and scheduling the report?
I mean, I'll definitely have to like run through it all again.
Yeah, I figured as much, but do you think you guys would be able to set up just the reporting side for a couple of people? You know, obviously we'll be here to guide and help out along the way, but any questions you have as far as what we need to do or what you'd need to do that?
So is that like from their first call, or is it just like a quick email where you're like, hey, what do you have with your analytics? Like what like logins can I have and things like that?
Yeah, so usually on the first call, we'll just kind of go over all the logins that we need to get from them. And typically we try not to on the call get them. Some people will be like, oh yeah, let me just give them to you right now. And they'll like start giving their password over the phone. And just because the issue that happens generally then is like it gets written down on by hand somewhere. And then if that paper gets lost or if that file gets lost for whatever reason, they disappear. So generally we'll just do like a recap email at the end of that first kickoff call, and then just ask them if they can email them over to us.
Okay.
Once we get passwords, the general protocol is they should be stored in SharpSpring. So if you get into SharpSpring and I'm going to go to MediaFast just because I know that one's got it filled in. And, well, I guess we have two MediaFast, and one of them had it filled in. And you come to this password section. That's where we'll generally store long form passwords and notes and whatnot for a client. So if you've gotten that email back from them and they've given us everything, this is generally speaking where I'd throw it. I should do that for the paper store and more. Ooh, we don't have an account in here yet for the paper store and more. I'll take care of getting that set up and getting them added in and pasting in the passwords. I know that's a little bit outside of the reporting setup, but did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. As far as setting up other goals, again, usually on that call, we would ask if there are other things. You can most of the time kind of figure it out. Like for them, there probably won't be much besides maybe phone calls, transactions, and forms. But if like it's, say, South Davis site, they've got this big button that says book appointment. And so we set up a goal for people clicking the book appointment button. But that's just kind of, again, one that's more custom. So he's got that button, I think, a couple places, like just throughout his site, and all the different places that you could potentially click to book, I think are just set up to give us a goal completion. And not only does it say someone clicked it, it says someone clicked the header button, or someone clicked the homepage button, the slider button, whatever it might be. But not every site is going to have those. And so typically form and phone call are just the ones that we kind of want to focus on. There are other types of goals that you can have. Like some people will have a goal for just like visiting certain pages. So if someone like hits the contact us page, they might say that's a goal completion. We've had clients that will say like, oh, if someone spends 3 minutes on the site, we want that to count as a goal completion, because most people only spend 1 minute on our site. Really just about anything they want, and it can be more complex than that as well. Like it's quite possible to say if someone hits page A and page C, we want a goal completion, but if they only hit page A or page C and not both, we don't want a goal completion. You name it, we can pretty much set it up. It's just a matter of making sure that we've got triggers in their website that are going to send that data to Google Analytics. I think that's probably about it, at least for now.
Cool.
I might come out and just help you each kind of go through the first one that we'll do. And then if you wouldn't mind, I think this afternoon would be good to just try and plug away at a few of these, maybe starting with those clients that are a little bit more in the red, and just working through the list. But yeah, I think we're probably good there. I'm going to stop the share and I'll come back out once I've got it saved, and I'll send the video over to you guys as well.
Okay, cool.